Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Lords, the final day of Championship cricket at the home of cricket this season. Middlesex taking on Glamorgan, and in a very good position on the final morning, you would imagine. Very close to wrapping this up now. A 15-run lead for Glamorgan in their second innings with only 2 wickets standing. So Middlesex will be very hopeful that they will be claiming second spot this morning. Of course, cricket many times has very different options available, doesn't it? And very different outcomes. And that's why we love this game. I'm Kevin Hand. Alan Coleman's alongside me. We'll be having a natter in a little while. But before we get into it, let's have a look back on what happened on day 3.
Middlesex heading for victory with 3 for Roland Jones. Mark Stoneman produced a determined ton at the top of the Middlesex order to give the host the advantage on a weather-disrupted second day at Lords. Simpson and Higgins had built on that platform, the advantage 72 heading into the third day of play. Simpson would resume on 72, but would only add 4 to his total when he played around Hogan's full and straight delivery. And Harris dealt with the other set bat. Higgins cleaned up, leg stump out of the ground. Holman and Roland Jones denied Glamorgan another quick wicket, moving Middlesex's advantage up into triple figures. It was the spin of Patel that saw the back of Roland Jones, out well taken at slip by Gill. Holman brought out some entertaining shots with Bamber at the other end, 350 up as he reversed Patel for 4. Bamber fell pretty tamely, hesitantly pushing at Patel and departing caught at slip by David Lloyd. Murtagh stayed with Holman, the number 8 grateful, who's 50 up with a single off Patel, the mark punctuated with a towering 6. He would fall soon after, trying to pull Harris, bowling out to Gill, down for 58. Middlesex 390 all out, an impressive showing on a tricky surface. Stoneman had set the tone, Simpson and Holman had piled on the pain with 76 and 58. The hosts lead 176, heading into the third innings, despite the best efforts of former Middlesex man James Harris, who finished with 5 for 90. David Lloyd and Eddie Byram made a solid and relatively quick start. The captain was the aggressor, his colleague the immovable object, and 50 runs came and went with ease. Lloyd was batting fast, racing his way to 50, brought up off 63 balls when he pulled Higgins through the leg side for his 9th 4 of a defiant innings. Middlesex tried what they could, yet to find any joy. The pair put on 100 unbeaten, and the deficit was now looking much less imposing for the visitors. Lloyd would finally depart with 70 to his name, caught well by Robson off Bamber. A gritty knock from the captain left Glamorgan 49 behind at tea. The game opened up for Middlesex after tea. Roland Jones saw the back of Byram caught by Bamber 3 short of his 50, and 2 balls later, North East would follow, caught behind for a 2-ball duck. The visitors left with a bit of a rebuilding job on their hands. Gill and Carlson tried to weather the storm, but Murtagh moved one away from the number 5 to pick up the 4th for Middlesex. Root followed in the next over, edging to Robson at second slip off the bowling of Ethan Bamber. And then the dangerous Gill followed 6 balls later. Murtagh with the wickets, Holman with the catch, and Glamorgan 6 down, still trailing by 32. Cook and Harris shut up shop. They were batting for time now, just chipping away at the score. They'd reduced the deficit to 1 run when Roland Jones found the 7th. Harris out caught behind for 14. And Higgins had the 8th. Cook, LBW, just the tail to get through now. But Patel and Van der Hookton held firm and ensured Middlesex would have to win it with the bats. The Glamorgan lead 15 at the close of play. Barring a lower order miracle, the host look set for the win. It's a question now of when, not if. Glamorgan will do all they can to deny Middlesex with promotion on the line, but their task is unenviable, and it's the home side who look set to take a huge stride towards a return to Division 1.
And they're out there early this morning. Play to resume at 10:30. It's just hit 10:28, but they're ready to go. And raring to go, I'm sure, Middlesex. 191 for 8 then Glamorgan. A lead of 15. Patel hit 36 in the first innings. Even that would be useful now, just to give them something to bowl at this morning. Here's Roland Jones to Van der Hookton. 4 slips in place. Point, mid-off, mid-on, mid-wickets. And long leg and cloudy skies here this morning, which, again, all of that, you'd imagine if Middlesex put it in the right spot with these 2 wickets required, whether it was blue skies this morning. Pressure on Glamorgan. I suppose in some ways, pressure off a little bit because the game should be gone. Alan Coleman, good morning to you, head of men's performance. Does that shift the pressure actually a little bit to Middlesex to make sure that they just don't let anything go slightly wrong this morning?
Yeah, I think much of the same as we saw yesterday evening from the Middlesex bowlers. A very disciplined performance, and Roland Jones will be looking to set Middlesex off in the same way.
Did you have a chat about yesterday? It was an innings of two halves, wasn't it? The half before the first wicket was claimed and the half after they claimed that wicket.
It was. I think Glamorgan were 123 for naught in the 30th over, and then obviously 191 for 8. 33 overs later at the end of the day, or 35 overs later at the end of the day. So fantastic disciplined bowling performance after tea from Roland Jones. Murtagh started with that excellent Bamber catch, who then followed it with a great spell himself from Ryan Higgins on his return.
First runs of the final day. There'll be a couple at least. A hard chase there for Mark Stoneman. Holds him to 2. Good chase by Stoneman. Depressingly, he has a sweater on this morning, Stoneman. It is a slightly colder morning for the final day of Championship cricket of the season at Lord's.
It is, as you said, a bit gloomier. Glorious sunshine yesterday, wasn't it? Throughout most of the day, but even then we saw that the pitch did nip around. First thing, Jimmy Harris from the nursery end I thought was outstanding for Glamorgan earlier on in the day. Really set the tone, but Middlesex batted fantastically well. Glamorgan definitely won that middle session, but Middlesex certainly winning the day.
That's a lovely shot down the grounds. Actually just came back up the slope slightly to Van der Houten that one, and he's managed to punch it nicely, and that'll get the blood flowing for the old skipper, Tim Murtagh. Mischief at the back of the box about what Glamorgan will be chasing here. I will admit, Glamorgan fans, I was being the jester as ever, suggesting it will be 17 for Middlesex to chase. Bang bang hasn't happened. It has in consecutive deliveries though, 2 and 3 scored. The lead's 20, and in this situation, if you decide on the wrong end of it, you just say, look, even if you give yourself 70, just give yourself 70 to bowl at, and all of a sudden you have a couple of wickets. It just puts some nerves in there. Just give yourself something to go at. This man could well be the danger. Patel, 36 in the first innings, second highest scorer in that first dig for Glamorgan.
We just saw with that wide shot just a moment ago, Middlesex deploying a much more defensive field for Patel. Deep square leg back, fine leg back, and deep point. Max Holden out there patrolling the big boundary in front of the grandstand on his own. So yeah, a little bit more space. Patel obviously set his stall out in that first innings with a very aggressive 36.
Leg side from Roland Jones, and a leg by for Glamorgan. End of the opening over of the final day. 69 bowls, 96 remain of the match. I think we can safely say we won't be going into the last hour. If we are, it will be the most extraordinary day's cricket, and the most extraordinary partnership will have happened between these two in the meantime. But 22 is the partnership at the moment from 37. They need an awful lot of runs to give themselves something to bowl at. Again, Middlesex have just got to be mindful here, haven't they, of what happened in the first half of this innings yesterday and what happened in the second, and make sure that they don't let Glamorgan really have 23 overs like they had yesterday morning. Right, that was a top order, but equally this is an older ball. 11 overs until the second new ball. I guess that will slightly be on Glamorgan's mind as well. What damage can they do in those 11 overs? They don't want to be reckless, but they will want to score runs in that time.
They will, and Patel, as we were talking about there, will certainly be looking to score runs. He started last night with a lovely sort of clip off Roland Jones down through mid-wicket. Very positive player, and this could be an exciting half hour to watch.
It's a single, first ball off Murtagh. I was just about to say that could be a really interesting combination, Patel and Murtagh. Right arm over to the left-hander, so LBW needs a lot. You can just see that hand shape there from Patel. The shape that Murtagh's getting. But it usually requires a fair old bit, right arm over to left-hander to get an LBW. That does do it though, bring it back up the slope. That's his stock ball to bring it into the left-hander. So with that short boundary away on the offside, only a little bit of width, you'd imagine Patel will really start to lean into it if he gets the opportunity. And a 6-3 field for Van der Houten, so there's the long leg in place just in case one slips away down the hill. Try and protect fine leg and perhaps even deep backward square as well. If you can get around down there, Roland Jones. But nobody through square. There's a mid-wicket in place and a mid-arm. Murtagh will be trying to keep it on that length, just outside off. Just try and bowl properly. Which, again, you know, as Gus put it, you can make whatever excuse you want. They bowled badly yesterday, but the reasons for it. Did they go searching for it a little bit too much at the start of the innings, Middlesex? I think you'd have to say yes straight away, because it was that bad that you can pick a number of reasons, can't you? And you know, people are allowed to play badly, aren't they? Players are allowed to play badly. It was just unusual collectively that they did. But that's something that obviously they'll just be looking to steer clear of this morning. Just stick to the basics, which is what they got back to.
Yeah, the good balls were good in that afternoon session for Middlesex. The problem was that every over there seemingly was a rank long hop or a long half volley which got hit to the boundary, and there was no pressure being built at either end from the Middlesex seam quartet. But then after tea, back to the discipline that you would expect to see from the Middlesex members. Would have seen a lot of Murtagh, Roland Jones and Bamber being very disciplined. Higgins obviously brought in to do a similar role and just showed that pressure that was able to be built. And actually, interestingly, the good balls weren't the ones that got the wickets, were they? Like last night, the good balls Glamorgan kept out and Middlesex built pressure. And then when there was a little bit of width, they seemed to be the ones that Glamorgan went after and nicked, and some good catching in that evening session as well.
Oh, it's a lovely ball from Mercer, goodness me. Van der Houten using his feet. Beaten as that swings up the slope. See a replay of it. And my feeling was that Van der Houten went first. He did, just a little shuffle. Brought him a long way outside that off stump to play at that ball. He's playing at nearly a 6 stump line there, isn't he?
He is very wide there. That swung from off stump to outside off stump, and Van der Houten's had a bit of a fiddle at it. Lucky not to nick it, but as you said, saw him getting down the wicket there, trying to negate Murtagh's movement.
At the 70th, 198 for 8. I guess, you know, summarising slightly what you were saying there, John Embry used the phrase again on the first or second morning when he was up here in the commentary box. It was probably one of the first things I had to learn most quickly when I took on this job in 2005, and John Embry put it back then, and he kind of looked at him and yeah, he thought first class cricket, and he said the bowler's job is to stop the batsman scoring runs, not to take wickets, and you kind of have to get your head around that a little bit. So you go from club cricket where you're just running in trying to take wickets, aren't you, really? Generally you might have a coach who's trying to explain to you something different, but you're not really hearing it. But and it is something that I think, you know, perhaps can on occasions be explained more often. Oh, that's up and just short of mid-on. Bamber there. Did it carry, though? Just the disappointment of Roland Jones? Was it the disappointment that it chopped short?
Yeah, disappointed reaction all round there from the Middlesex players as this one loops up from Patel towards Bamber at mid-on. Bamber caught a brilliant catch yesterday afternoon. And
oh, he's chopped it.
He is just...
oh.
That's a knock-on, I think, that is. That's a penalty to the opposition. Ball's just dropped on him there and he's just palmed it into the floor. So, disappointing for Middlesex.
Deep square and long leg set back, so it's not a drop followed by 4 as you so often see. A bowler puts that little bit of extra effort in. Patel gets the shorter ball, just a single to long leg.
And equally disappointing for Roland Jones, currently on 3 wickets there. He'd have had the prospect of his 4th wicket and 5 balls at number 11 Michael Hogan, but unfortunately not to be.
Yeah, again, just going back to that, it's the bowler's job to stop the batters scoring runs. Again, that goes back to kind of that 4th, 5th stump line where you're actually missing the stumps consistently, aren't you, as a bowler, rather than bowling at them. And it's just keeping that tight economy. And then, as you say, it's almost the bad balls then that can take the wickets, because then all of a sudden the batter's going looking for runs. Oh, eyes light up and plays a rash shot.
I think that will be the disappointing thing, I think, from the Glamorgan perspective of yesterday, was that Lloyd and Byron batted brilliantly, I thought, at the start for their partnership of 100 and 30 or 120 or whatever it was, but then just the fact that if you looked at the dismissals individually with no context, you would probably point your fingers more as a cricket fan at the batter there for a batter error rather than bowler brilliance. But Middlesex did build a lot of pressure on those Glamorgan batsmen.
Yeah, of course you don't, as the bowler, set out to think, right, I'm going to bowl all these good balls because the bad ball's going to take the wicket. That's just that it happens as a consequence, doesn't it, sometimes? Because ideally you're keeping the ball on the top of off stump and the batters aren't scoring runs. And again, it's whether they're trying to force something off that line and length. You just see a slightly fuller ball, slightly wider ball, they go after it, there's a little bit of movement. And they're not the bad balls, they're the good balls, you say. It's the rank long hop then that all of a sudden buys a wicket. Angle bat from Van Houten. He'll get a single back at a point. Into the 71st. That's the 200 up as well for Glamorgan in their second innings. 208, sorry. And again, just the summary of the match. Maybe those who are just tuning in, I missed the last few days. We're only going to get a little bit of the final day of the season. That 214, it was felt Middlesex didn't bowl well. And they felt they didn't bowl well. They knew they didn't bowl well enough. But then sometimes that happens. Sometimes you bowl beautifully and you don't get your reward. But either way, 214, they felt Glamorgan were actually a little heavy, which made 390 very heavy. But fair to say, part of that 214 was born out of a 10:30 start, a new ball, and 48 for 4.
It was, and there was just a regular fall of wickets through that innings, wasn't there? Glamorgan did play positively and score quite freely for their 214. Middlesex weren't, as has been the story of most of this game, Middlesex weren't as disciplined as you would normally associate this bowling attack to be, but just were able to keep picking up regular wickets. I think that Middlesex probably felt they should have been south of 200 rather than north of 200, but then a very decent batting performance.
Short from Murtagh and hooked away for 4. Van Houten moves to 15, 204 for 8.
Yeah, Murtagh looking to catch Van Houten on the surprise here with a bouncer, but the Glamorgan number 9 more than a match to it and picked it up beautifully with a lovely pull shot down through square leg.
Deep square dropping back from that mid-wicket position, which mid-wicket was catching initially and now run saving. One, if Murtagh does bump in a shorter ball, and part of that is that you don't want the batter sitting on your front foot. We just talked about constantly hitting the top of the off stump. Murtagh, who's not the quickest, but the reason he will drop one in short is because you don't want them thinking all 6 balls are going to allow me to plunge forward. There's that beautiful line of length again. That's where his economy is so good. You know, he does bowl that fuller length, which if you're a slightly taller or a slightly quicker bowler, you're just slightly off there. All of a sudden it comes onto the bat nicer, but his height, his pace, just constantly hitting almost 3/4 up the off stump. For Tim Murtagh, it's relentless, and again, that's been his magic over the years. Not only can he keep it on that spot, but then it's the variations that he's able to produce off that line and length. Again, nowhere to go for the batters at this point.
I think the thing that the batters find the most difficult about Murtagh with that relentless accuracy is, action-wise, he is still a little bit unique. So his feet do close off, and his bowling arm is almost over the perpendicular. So if you imagine the clock face at 12 o'clock, he's almost a bit further past that. So he isn't traditionally in a position that you would think would swing the ball away from the right-hander, but. And it's that angle that makes him difficult to line up.
Which angle's going to show that best for you to explain?
Well, I'll do my best with whichever one Ollie provides us with here, but just keep an eye on Murtagh's release hand here. So his feet sort of close off See that? And then he's just outside of his front foot. So as you look at the screen, when his front foot lands, his bowling hand actually releases the ball from the left-hand side of his front foot. That just sort of deceives the batter a little bit. It means they think the ball's coming at them, and then he gets the ball to swing away. So very difficult angle to pick up for a batter, as however many thousand wickets in professional cricket or whatever he's up to these days. There's a lot of people who've been deceived by that angle and his relentless accuracy, as you said, Kev.
It's a stark contrast, really, actually, between Mercer and Roland Jones, isn't it? That they do operate in very different ways. Both metronomes, that's what Roland Jones aims to be as well, to constantly hit the same spot. That same spot is a fraction shorter because of his height and his pace. But equally, he'll look to get it to lift and go off the seam as well, but lift off that slightly shorter length, which still has a batter worried about the top of their off stump. Hey, oh, it's gone, yeah, in the air. And down to mid-off, and Mercer has the chat with Bamber, I think, as he takes it. That's how you do it. 204 for 9, and Bamber goes straight to Roland Jones with relief. And smiles all round now that they have the 9th wicket and they have Patel. Put down at mid-on, he's taken at mid-off by the captain. And relief for Middlesex. The lead's 28. Glamorgan have 1 wicket standing.
Yeah, another step closer to the team song being sung in the home changing room shortly. We've seen Patel be very positive in the first innings, again showing that desire to score some runs. He chipped one up to Bamber at mid-on that was put down previously. This one chipped up to mid-off, bit higher for Mercer.
There was the little look for Bamber.
And a little look for Bamber. That's how you do it, young man. 204 for 9. Roland Jones on for 5 wickets as Hogan walks out to bat.
Even the look on Roland Jones's face. There'd have been a moment with his heart in his mouth thinking, not another one to go down. Mercer made it look very easy.
Great to see the Middlesex members there. And MCC members, obviously, turning up for this final, probably what will be the final session of county cricket at Lords this summer. Always very grateful for their dedicated support. A lot of them get around the country. I'm sure we'll see a good number of them at Leicester at Grace Road starting on Tuesday, and Worcester the following week as well. But the Middlesex team always very grateful from the great support they get from the members.
204 for 9 then, a lead of 28. Michael Hogan makes his way out. Padder Houghton might open up a little. Hogan very much capable of thumping it around. And it is at the stage now, we were talking about it at the end of the Middlesex first innings, weren't we, how they went about it, with the Roland Jones and Holman against the new ball might go hard at it. Well, the new ball's 7.5 overs, 7.4 overs away here for Glamorgan, and you do fancy for these two there's probably not much point in playing themselves in for the new ball. 28 runs on the board. Can they just find some sort of partnership here at the end, a 40-50 run partnership, just to put something on the board to bowl at on the final morning at Lords. 2 slips of gully, point covering a mid-off, mid-on, mid-wickets and long leg, so an orthodox fields. Everybody up apart from long leg. Oh, and offered just outside off to Hogan. Smile on his face as that one goes away down the slopes. Slope even.
Yeah, a bit of away movement from Roland Jones off the surface there. Double bounce through to John Simpson with the gloves on for Middlesex there, and a player miss in between that from Hogan. So another catcher comes in. Luke Coleman moves into third slip from gully. Max Holden moves into gully from point, and Ryan Higgins replaces Max Holden at point there. Yeah,
long leg moving up to mid-wicket. It's a 7-2 field. Nobody behind, square on the leg side. Just going to say, he'd have to look for the straight one here, wouldn't he? Because the whole field has just suggested there's no way this one's going to be blasting the pads off. That was just that little bit straighter and fuller from Roland Jones, but an inside edge saving Hogan. Runs to play with Middlesex, a lead of only 28, so able to pack that cordon, pat the offside and just keep hitting the off stump. lovely shot. There's a short boundary in the offside. They've got no sweeper back, but even if there was for that one, they wouldn't have got involved at all. Just wide of the mid-off fielder, and a lovely shot to get off the mark with 4.
It was a classic extra cover drive there from number 11 Hogan. You can see with his guard, he bats on leg stump, so he's looking to free his arms through the ball and score through the offside. It would have to be very, very straight for Hogan to get a run through the leg side with that sort of setup, but a very, very nice extra cover drive for 4 runs.
Top scorer 19 this season, unbeaten for Hogan. Average of 9. Van der Houten has a top score of 62. The one time he's gone past 50, but a healthy average. Oh, quick single, last ball of the over. How does Van der Houten feel about that? Hogan keeps the strike, he moves to 5. 209 for 9. The lead is 33, and Patel back in the pavilion caught Murtagh off Roland Jones for 9. Yeah, Van der Houten 6 not outs in his 10 innings, I should add, for his average of 43, but 62 his highest score. 31-year-old Van der Houten, he has played in 8 ODIs and 40 T20 internationals for the Netherlands. Highest first-class score of 85 550s in 91 innings.
He's very organised, isn't he? It's a batting lineup for Glamorgan that does go quite deep, with Harris at 8 and Van der Houten at 9, Chris Cook at 7, obviously fantastic first-class record as well. So a lot of batting through the lineup.
Oh, the single taken just wide of mid-on. Throw comes in, and oh, I think he was gone. Coming around was Peter Milan there at mid-on.
Yeah, expect these to be pretty full when Murtagh is bowling to Hogan. Just Peter Milan running around there at mid-on.
Single to the right hand of Milan. It was brave. It gives Van der Houten the strike. This will be interesting now. Deep squares back, deep point back as well. It's well bowled. It's very well played for a single. Hogan back onto strike, so his highest first-class score is 57, 450s, 250 innings. Average of 16 in first-class cricket. So far better than his season average of 9. It's a little bit of the Murtagh of Roland Jones about Hogan and Van der Houten, I suppose.
There is. I think Murtagh's sniffing his 3rd wicket here. He's got 3 more balls in this over at Hogan, and as I said at the start of the over, I suspect he's going to be pretty full here, encouraging Hogan to drive. Looking for a very full straight delivery that will probably try and bowl Hogan, or maybe he'll chip one up to cover. I think that'll be could be the mode of dismissal that Murtagh is looking for.
Oh, it goes up in the air, and it is going to be safe. Higgins running back from cover. It bounces over him and kicks on with the spin as well. So they get back for a second. 213 for 9. They were the last pair in the first innings. Patel was out 208 for 9. 204 for 9 in the second innings, wasn't it? They added just the 6 runs. 2 for Hogan, caught Roland Jones off Higgins. Van der Houten not out on 9. Somehow need to find a fair bit more than that. The lead 37. Long handle stuff coming out as you'd expect, and anything straight really, with a little sniff of going towards that onside, is going to have to go for Hogan or Van der Houten, and Hogan moves to 12, 217 for 9. That's shorter boundary to the onside. If there is any chance whatsoever for them to drag it across, you'd fancy they will.
He will. Hogan just dismissive there. Murtagh just on a good length, and Hogan just throws his bottom hand through that one. Picks it up into the big space there, right between mid-wicket and mid-on. And a bit of positive intent shown by the Glamorgan lower order here.
Yeah, good to see. I mean, the bowlers are working hard this morning, with Matt Maynard bowling into the mitt. Oh, dearie me. Lovely line and length from Mercer. May have troubled most batters, that one, but Van der Houten with Hogan with a distinctive way of playing it. 12 from 9 he has, and 217 for 9. This will be the over against Roland Jones, where it'll be, they've got to resist it really. You'd fancy that for the 10 and 11 their best chance, or they're not the 9 and 11, their best chance is perhaps to attack Mercer and not be reckless against the slightly quicker Roland Jones nowadays, but obviously very dangerous as well with his height and bounce.
Yeah, Middlesex happy for Van der Houten to get a single here. You can see on that shot there, gaps at point and square leg, both fielders back on the boundary.
There you go. Just solid line length. Saw that drive get away wide of mid-off at the end of last over, and that's pretty much what I'd imagine against Roland Jones they'll try and do. Just push back anything they have to, leave alone anything they can. And if there is a half volley, there is a little bit of width. That's where the 3 slips might come into play, but Roland Jones won't want to give them much on that offside width-wise, because there's point back on a short boundary. And high up on the pads, on the hip guards, going down leg. So yeah, the lead 41. 70 is just something, isn't it? 70 fancy, get a couple of wickets early, then it's just a little bit of pressure. Especially when you saw that Glamorgan collapse. As you were saying, they'd reached 123 without loss in the 31st over. Short, hooked away safely all along the floor out to deep square. Single for Van der Houten, moves him to 17. Yes, they were 123 without loss in the 31st. By the 48th, they were 144 for 6. Oh, wow. I was worried there for a moment as I saw that backlift come up from Hogan and then the swing. That ball was right up there on middle and off. Clattering in if he missed. They've taken 2 back over the bowler's head. Bamba retreating back from mid-off.
We expected the entertainment to come from Patel, actually, didn't we, really? He nudged the ball around, and the 2 attacking shots he did try and play sort of both went aerial to mid-off, mid-on. Hogan, the one here, providing the lower order entertainment in the style of Tim Mercer that we've become accustomed to, though. Hogan perhaps a little more behind the line of it than Mercer sometimes is. Hitting the...
Swings again, that's up in the air. Bamba may have a chance underneath this. It's a tricky chance, but he holds on to the tougher catch. And it's 220 all out, and Roland Jones finishes the season at Lords with a 5 for 61 for him. And Middlesex have 45 to win. Excellent performance with the ball. Well, in both innings really, they had a tough time of it at the start of this innings. 123 without loss. They've wrapped up all 10 for fewer than 100 after that breakthrough then, when Lloyd eventually fell. And well, in a match where they felt they probably could have bowled better, they'll walk off the field feeling at least that they have wrapped it up.
Yeah, Hogan continued in his positive style there. Roland Jones, well-deserved 5 wickets for his spell, specifically after tea. They're well caught by Bamba. He'd have been nervous under that one, having dropped Patel earlier on. But the lovely thing here, you can see the confidence that Robson has there at second slip. Robson just turning away, walking back to the pavilion as the ball goes up in the air there. But a very well-deserved 5 wickets for Roland Jones. Now, he's been outstanding this year. Look of hope on Roland Jones's face there, I think. And yes, thank God. And that probably could be described as a thank God for that.
And there's Bamba's laugh as well. Feeling pretty happy with himself, taking the much more difficult chance. And again, that is cricket, isn't it? Roland Jones leads them off with a 5 for. Brilliant from him. And A nice applause and ovation from the crowd for one last time this season for the bowling effort from Middlesex, where again, you know, they've skiddled on what, 214 and 220, and felt that they didn't bowl at their best in this game. In fact, far from it at times.
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate assessment. That the Middlesex not at their best through large periods of this. Very, very good last night, and that really set up that effort for this morning that we've just seen there with those 2 wickets falling relatively cheaply. I think you take a lead. You take a final innings chase of below 50, and that's what Middlesex have got themselves here. So a really nice performance there yesterday evening. Roland Jones leading away with 5, Murtagh with 2 wickets, Bamber with 2. Bamber, the one who started it off with the David Lloyd wicket, and then the very good catch that he caught Eddie Byram, and that really started that procession of wickets that we saw last night. And Ryan Higgins chipping in there with a single wicket to back up his 4 wickets in the first innings.
Let's go through that card very quickly. Lloyd caught Robson, bowled Bamber for 70. Byram caught Bamber, bowled Roland Jones for 47. Gill caught Holman, bowled Murtagh for 11. North East was caught Simpson, bowled Roland Jones for 0. That was a big moment, really, it felt, when the mode of dismissal was pretty soft as well, wasn't it? There it is on the screen. Carlson caught Eskenazi, bowled Murtagh for 9. Roots caught Robson, bowled Bamber for a duck. Cook was LBW Higgins for 14. Harris caught Simpson, bowled Roland Jones for 14. And Van der Hooten at the end, unbeaten on 17. Patel's 9. That'll be disappointment that he wasn't able to get it away this morning, despite 2 efforts and a life. And Hogan caught Bamber, bowled Roland Jones for 14. So yeah, I think a little bit of surprise to say for me was that Hogan went after Roland Jones, that perhaps should they have thought, let's try and see off Roland Jones, maybe our better chances to swing at the slightly slower pace of Murtagh, who finished with 2 for 50 from 19, 5 for 61 from Roland Jones, who had a very unusual spell to begin with from the pavilion end and actually came back to call his wickets from the nursery end in the end, didn't he? And Higgins 1 for 39 from 16, Bamber 2 for 36 from 12, and Holman none for 30 from 6.
Yeah, an interesting observation there in that the wickets that the Middlesex bowlers got were from the opposite ends that you would expect. Murtagh bowling there from the pavilion end, picking up a couple of wickets. Roland Jones switching to the nursery end, and Bamber doing the same and taking 7 wickets between them from the opposite end that you would expect them to bowl. So good captaincy there, just to keep jiggling it around, finding a combination that worked. Middlesex happy here to chase 44 in the final innings and to move their way back up the table into second place once these runs are hopefully knocked off.
Gus came up with a good, interesting stat at one point. With the first 24 wickets to fall in the match, if you took the spinner out of it, Patel, then 17 of 20 wickets for the non-spinners fell at the nursery end. Which again, if we go through it now, Roland Jones is 5 for it's probably gone even more than that.
It has. The other interesting thing from that Glamorgan scorecard there, quite an unlaud statistic you would say, no bowls in that Glamorgan innings and only 1 LBW, the LBW of Chris Cook and Ryan Higgins. Everything else caught either behind or in front of the wicket. So normally at Lords you'd see a lot more bowls and LBWs, especially as you move through the game into innings 3 and 4 where the wickets generally get a little bit lower. So yeah, some interesting elements in the scorecard.
What would you read into that one?
Well, Gus would probably say that, well, we didn't bowl straight enough. But what I would suggest there is that, as we sort of said, the balls that Middlesex bowled well, Glamorgan defended pretty well and kept out. And when Middlesex did offer just a fraction of width, they were the ones that Glamorgan looked to score off, and they were the ones they seemed to nick or chip into the ring for catches. So a bit of a strange scorecard, and one that you wouldn't expect, especially in September at Lords on a 7-day-old pitch, 8-day-old pitch now. Let's not forget this pitch used earlier in the season in the game against Leicestershire. So yeah, you would normally see many more bowls than LBWs, especially from a Middlesex bowling attack who do hit the stumps a lot. Quartet that we're seeing here.
It's pondering taking a break. They come back on well, they're due back on in 5 minutes, aren't they? But the bowlers are out there already, as you can see, coming down. They'll be raring to go and they'll be fired up by Maynard, because you never give up. You always go out from that first ball and think, well, come on, you never know. 0 for 2, and then something might just happen. So that's what Glamorgan will be looking for. But I guess it's an opportunity really, because this could Middlesex will hope this happens very quickly and quietly. The knocking off the runs, it'll take a little while. They won't go recklessly about it, they'll go patiently about it. But on reflection of the season, Middlesex going to the final 2 games. If all goes well today, they'll enter the final 2 games in second spot. knowing again possibly that a season where nobody wanted to put too much expectation on the start of it. I know that yourself and Richard Johnson were keen to say, look, that it's a squad that's got a lot of potential, but let's not get carried away just yet. Let's get out there and put some performances. They clearly did that at the start of the season, and there were some excellent performances. It was an amazing start, and then expectations did go up. So when there was perhaps a slight slowing in results, a slight little wobble of results in the middle, all of a sudden you do worry a little bit. But that's the inconsistency that Middlesex are trying to correct to move forward once more.
You're right. The sort of ethos at the start of the season was just around improvement, really. I think Middlesex have been too inconsistent in this format. There have been some brilliant moments over the previous sort of 4 or 5 seasons since the 2016 championship win, but just not enough of them on a consistent basis. And that was a challenge that was set really to the playing group by myself and Richard Johnson, was just let's just be more consistent, let's be harder to beat. And I think by and large this season that has been the case. We've seen a few more draws than we've seen traditionally, especially in home games at Lords. And disappointing couple of losses, as you said, there in the middle, one at Chesterfield, one at Merchant Taylors. But that great start meant that Middlesex were always in the hunt to be up there for promotion, and it was a nice feeling knowing that going into these last 3 games it was in Middlesex's hands. 3 decent results. Obviously this game against Glamorgan was a crucial one to get on the right side of. It looks like Middlesex are going to do that in this chase of just under 50 runs on the final day of this game. But that was the objective, just keep in the hunt, and the squad have managed to do that. And let's be honest, it's a different side as well from the one that started the season. There's no Tom Helm here, 2 different overseas players in Peter Milan. Obviously Umesh Yadav not available for this game, who came in to replace Shaheen Afridi and Peter Hanscom. Ryan Higgins added to the group, so there's been a bit of an evolvement of this team as we've gone through the season. Robbie White started the season and has lost his place as we've gone through. Martin Anderson the same. So have seen a bit of a change in the playing group, but the results have remained relatively consistent throughout.
It's all of a sudden a team that actually looks very hard to get into, and that's with, as you say, only the 1 overseas at the moment in Milan. So the possibility again of 2 overseas for next year, but a lot of youngsters. Blake Cullen will be coming back from injury next season, will be really desperate to get into this side, and obviously say Martin Anderson losing his place. Tom Helm is unavailable at the moment because of his England call up, but then there's plenty of batters as well. Robbie White, who actually last year he was the one who looked as though he'd kind of solved the middle order problem for Middlesex, and again at the start of the season with back-to-back 50s. But he had a really good 2020 and 2021, didn't he, Robbie White? That says something of the competition. And clearly the biggest improvement's been with the bat, and that's been helped only by those 2 on screen right now who've had excellent summers.
They have done. Mark Stoneman nearing 1,000 runs. I think he'll get there by probably hopefully after next week at Leicestershire, but scored 500s now for Middlesex, Mark Stoneman, in a very short space of time, and he really has been a fantastic addition to this batting group. Just a bit of consistency and stability next to Sam Robson, who has been outstanding for a number of years for Middlesex. So these 2, you're right, have been key to that, and then a consistency of that spine through the middle. Luke Holman's made the number 7, number 8 spot in this game with the addition of Ryan Higgins, his own. John Simpson's been outstanding batting at 6 in this lineup. Max Holden's had a very good year batting at 5 and hasn't probably got the 100 that he's deserved so far, but Middlesex members will be hoping that that's coming in the next couple of weeks to help a result either at Grace Road or New Road.
And this, from a Glamorgan perspective as well, this is a Glamorgan side who are second in the table coming into this game, and they're not there for no reason. And it is a very good side as we've seen in this. They'll be very disappointed with their performance in this match. It's 45 it is to win, and here's James Harris. Oh, Stoneman goes after him, first ball, width outside off stump, keeps going up the slope. That one.
Yep, I think that's a sign of how Mark Stoneman thinks he's going to approach this. A little bit of width from James Harris, and Stoneman has thrown his hands through that. He's maybe taking on the England mantra here, try and get this as quickly as you can. There is a short boundary to use as well to the leg side for Mark Stoneman. When Robson's on strike from this end, it'll be Robson's offside where the shorter boundary is. But Stoneman really showing here that he's probably not going to look to hang around too much.
Oh, that's a beautiful ball from Harris. Beautiful ball. There was the match here earlier in the season, wasn't there? They had a tricky, well, not a tricky little chase, but just one that you have to be wary of. But look at that, really good line and length from Harris. And again, if he can leave it there, then there's no runs to be scored off that, which goes exactly back to what we've been talking about all morning long. Just keep hitting the top of off and see if something happens.
Here's another just interesting part of this little conundrum here is the over rate currently is -1, so you'd expect Patel to have to bowl for Glamorgan.
There are the first runs. Up on his toes, opening the face back with a point. He'll pick up a couple here. Stoneman, 43 to win.
Yeah, as it stands, so Glamorgan have picked up 1 batting point for their 214 in the first innings, 3 bowling points for bowling out Middlesex inside 110 overs, but a -1 on the over rate here. So they will definitely have an eye on that, with every point crucial as you come into this stage of the season.
Yeah, there's a Leicestershire game. They just had 52 to knock off at the start of the season, which these two, I know Richard Johnson actually gave them a fair bit of credit, just making sure that it was done without any real complications. 52, and it took them 10.3 overs to knock it off this pair. It was the Durham match, where they had a slightly trickier chase. Was that short and cut away? First boundary. That really races. Bangs over the rope. The hill to the grandstands.
Beautiful bit of timing here from Mark Stoneman. We saw Harris was short and wide with his first delivery, a second delivery of the over that's a touch shorter than he wanted, and Stoneman ruthless on that length, cuts the ball to cover for 4 runs and helps get Middlesex started on this chase. 39 more required.
Against Durham, 119 for 4. There was the infamous failure to chase 117 at Chesley Street a few years back, which obviously got a mention when they were chasing that. 119 to win. Stoneman 29. That's a 39 not out from Pete Hanscom. 21 from Simpson. Seeing the win over the line. Ooh, that comes back down the slope, beats the inside edge, and there's the intent still from Stoneman. 6 without loss at the end of the opening over. Just yeah, I thought on Glamorgan, it's a batting lineup with Gill at 3 and North East at 4, but Lloyd and Byron with decent opening pair, as we saw in the second innings in particular. Root at 6, Carlson and Cookie the side of him, highly regarded. Harris at 8. So the batting's there for Glamorgan, and equally the bowling. They'll just be slightly disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more with the bat, albeit that it was a tough one. It was a good toss to win, but I have to say that as well for Middlesex. A good toss to win to put Glamorgan on that first morning.
It was 10:30 start in September. You remember the old NatWest finals from all those years ago, wasn't it? Win the toss and bowl, and for a 10:30 start in September at Lords, it always does a little bit early morning, and it was a good toss to win. It is a good wicket for this time of year. It started a little bit damp, obviously with the weather that's been and the lack of sun in the last week. Probably not as dry as some of the pitches have started here this season, but what you would say is it's been a competitive surface all the way through. You don't score 390 on a bad surface, but it's kept the bowlers in the game all the way through as well. Patel starting up, bit of spin, just for Glamorgan to start up.
Oh, it's a lovely ball. A little bit of grip on that first one. Thick edge from Robson, picks up 2. Gets him off the mark first ball. Looks as though he got a real bit of purchase off the surface there, Patel.
He did. Normally with a new ball you'd see the spinner skid the ball on, but that one definitely has gripped and caught Robson's outside edge.
A bit more flight on that one, a little bit fuller from Patel. The over 8 is 0 for Glamorgan now, but even still, perhaps it's not a bad idea. It'll just slow them up, you'd have thought, having Patel at one end. Scampered single. Throw went to the wicket-keeper's end, which I'm not sure that was a mistake in the end, because they'd have been comfortably through at the keeper's end.
Yeah, just a test of the hamstrings there for Mark Stoneman from Sam Robson, just to make sure he's paying attention, I think, at the non-strikers end. Oh, the quad, there we go. He's just having a little stretch of his quad there. I think he's just woken himself up there with that one, but a very quick single taken by Robson. Not actually normally something you'd associate with Sam, just to drop the ball into a space and run. He's he's not one of those types of players. Stoneman a lot busier between the wickets, you would say, and looks to rotate the strike a bit more. Robson a little bit more of a kind of sit in and wait for a bad ball type opening batter.
Interesting, Patel's coming straight over the wicket here to Stoneman. He got him left arm around in the first innings, one that just slid across down the slope. But yeah, Glamorgan will probably feel... Again, that first innings was a funny one, wasn't it? Because of the 10:30 start, it's hard to weigh up. Should Glamorgan have done better, or Middlesex feel they didn't bowl particularly well? Hard sweep from Stoneman. Finally, the deep backward square leg. Another boundary for him. He moves to 10. Wonder whether Patel will just think about his line here. Go back to around the wicket where he was against Stoneman.
Yeah, you might think that Patel's maybe identified a foothold that he's trying to hit here to the left-handed Stoneman, because you're right, previous innings we saw him get in from around the wicket with the ball sliding across. You would think the new ball would slide across as well, but a very well controlled sweep shot there from Stoneman. Very aggressive intent, hard sweep behind square that North East wasn't able to cut off in his position at deep backward square leg for Glamorgan.
But yeah, just to analyse in the Middlesex first innings, they'll be disappointed that they didn't get more out of it on a surface that was offering a bit to the seamers. They had a pretty decent seam attack, didn't they? And then Patel as well to throw in there. 390, you could probably say was as much as 100 over par perhaps from Middlesex.
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, it was. You would probably say a 270, 280 in September would be enough. There's Ethan Bamber just talking them through
That drop catch.
I think he's just saying if I was batting against Patel, I'd probably just be looking to get across my stumps and clip him, or just talking that maybe Steve Eskenazi threw his method against the spin. But Bamber holding court, very intelligent young man, Ethan. So
Beaut, isn't he? Absolute beaut of a human being.
he is. Ethan hoping to go out to Australia this winter, actually. Obviously, without COVID being around, it does enable or a bit less COVID around, it does enable the boys to get abroad. I think some missed opportunities in the last couple of years because of that. So a few of the Middlesex team looking to go and play some cricket abroad, and Ethan Bamber certainly one of those. Yeah, full from James Harris this one. It's an over pitch, and just asking the ball to swing here a little. That's New Duke's ball, and Robson very well controlled down to that short cover boundary. Down to Knight Frank and iShares, two of Middlesex's sponsors there for 4 runs.
Lovely shot again, back to back from Robson. I did wonder that when he scampered the single. Did he fancy the seamer a little bit more? He moves to 11 from 6.
Yeah, this is definitely a replay. Could be a replay of either of the previous 2 deliveries here. A beautifully controlled cover drive from Robson. Touched full of that one maybe from James Harris, and they are the balls that the coaches spend all morning throwing at the batters to build some confidence. So Mark Ramprakash and Rory Coots would have thrown Sam Robson a number of those this morning. He's lent on that beautifully through cover for 4.
Down to fine leg, 4 more. Robson moves to 15, 25 without loss, 20 to win.
Hat-trick of boundaries there for Sam Robson, 2 through the covers. And this third one down to fine leg. Harris just trying to adjust his line. It's taken that from quite straight, actually. A bit straighter than we thought. Midland leg. But a well-guided, we'll call it a leg glance for 4 runs up towards the pavilion.
I think Stoneman's going to have a bit of a word with him when they walk off. That scampered single that nearly did my quad was all because you wanted a healthy red inker, Robbo. everything behind that one. I've known Harris was coming back at him hard. Yeah, these pair opening the batting this season. Stoneman averaging 49, Robson averaging just under 43. Both with 3 centuries. Stoneman with 1 more 50 to his name than Robson. He has 3, Robson has 2. Oh, just squared up by that one. Thick edge might well go away for 4. It was a hard chase there for Roots. Robson's on 17, 18 to win.
Yeah, very thick outside edge, that one. Through the covers there for 2 runs for Robson. Keeps that scoreboard ticking over. Middlesex at 9 and over here. Taking inspiration from the England Test team, it would seem. And a very, very decent start for the Middlesex batsman.
John O'Ball. A little early, isn't it, for all that, Coley?
His Fletcher's expenses budget's obviously very healthy at the moment, so much appreciated.
A little thank you for your work in the commentary box this year. Oh, that swept hard. Beautifully done by Stoneman. Picks up the single, back to Robson. Over to you, says Stoneman. Go on then. Stoneman on to 11, Robson on 17. 17 to win. Yeah, Robson's a couple of innings fewer than Stoneman. Stoneman's played 12, Robson 11 because that broken thumb he had at the start of the year.
He missed the first game, didn't he? Broke his thumb in the warm-up, the final warm-up game against Essex, actually, at Merchant Taylor's.
Which was a run fest as well, wasn't it? The Derbyshire game. He'll say that's...
Josh DeCaires opened the batting in that game, didn't he?
Use of the feet, and he gets it straight to the mid-off as well. For 4 more, Robson's into the 20s. Yeah, trying to make up. Missing out on that Derbyshire match start of the year.
Yeah, good use of the feet here from Robson. Patel does give it plenty of flight, gives you an option to get down the wicket, but very, very skillful and very well, a lot of control. The New Zealand international, but Robson equal to that. Good use of feet and a classic lofted off drive up towards the pavilion. 13 to win.
Yeah, 130 runs, 128 runs in the difference between them this season. That one match against Derbyshire, Robson will say it was fully that one. If I was there, I'd be ahead. That was away down the leg side. 4 more. Just the 9 to win now as Robson moves to 25. Middlesex 36 without loss.
Quicker ball this from Patel, trying to slide the ball into Robson's pads. Just drifted down the leg side too much, aided by the slope. And a very fine tickle around the corner. 4 more, Sam Robson 25 off 13 now.
So Glamorgan entertained Derbyshire on Tuesday. I think it's fair to say Middlesex will be second by the time that game comes around now. Derbyshire dropped to 4th. Glamorgan drops to 3rd. Just in case this happens quickly, the final 9 runs, end of the over, 36 without loss. Leicestershire away from Middlesex. Nottinghamshire away to Worcestershire, which could just tighten up the end of the tail. Worcestershire will very much be hoping that, for their own part, a win against Sussex today and a win against Nottinghamshire. They've got Middlesex last game of the season, that they can tighten it up come the last rounds. So there's still all to play for, but Middlesex do go into it in a healthy enough position, holding 2nd spot. So as such, with it in their own hands, albeit 2 away games. Glamorgan's final game away at Sussex, which again, they'll think a home game against Derbyshire, they'll fancy it, an away game to Sussex as well.
I think so. That'll be what a great game that'll be down at Sapphire Gardens next week. Glamorgan, as you said, very well deserved to be up at the table for the cricket they've played, up there in the table for the cricket they've played. Derbyshire, likewise, much improved under Mickey Arthur this year, and they've been a very competitive side all season. So that'll be a fantastic game of 4-day cricket next week down at Sapphire Gardens.
Sussex are making a fist of it. They're 88 for 2, but they still trail Worcestershire by 130 runs at Hove on the final day. Ali Orr on 48, Allsop on 17. Stops a point.
Worth saying there that the second wicket to fall is Curry, the night watchman for Sussex, so they are almost 1 wicket further ahead than perhaps the actual batting lineup suggests. Allsop normally in one place higher, but they sent in Brad Curry, the night watchman, last night.
Check Libby ending with 215 for Worcestershire, 98 for Pollock. A 24-point win for Worcestershire puts them up to 168, so they tuck in right behind Derbyshire on 169. Glamorgan 172 coming into this game, 176 coming out of it, so between third and fifth there's going to be there's only a couple of points really, a handful of points, so it's a bit of an eliminator between Glamorgan and Derbyshire next week. Obviously have an eye on what's happening at Grace Road. That's a lovely shot down the grounds by Stoneman. Pretty effortless swing back over the bowler's head.
It's been a pretty dismissive batting performance this from the experienced Middlesex opening pair. And Stoneman, that's just a decent length ball there from Jimmy Harris. Not done too much wrong at all, and Stoneman's just lifted it up and over the top there. Just going back to that league table, quite interesting. Sort of every team has a say, will have a say in it, won't they? Glamorgan going to Sussex last game, Middlesex at Leicestershire next week, and then I think Leicestershire might be playing Derbyshire in the final game as well. So even the teams that are at the bottom of the table have got something to say, and that's the great thing about this 2-divisional county championship that we're seeing. No dead games.
Edged, yeah, but well short of the deep third. Single Stoneman takes him 16, 4 to win. Yeah, Durham just a little bit further back. They go to Hove, where they'll very much be hoping again. Tough season for Sussex, just the 1 victory. Durham, they're only 10 points behind, 5th spot, going into that final game, assuming that Worcestershire will wrap up the win today. And they play Nottinghamshire in the final game. But he couldn't mathematically rule out Durham climbing up as well. Last ball of the over from Harris. Leading edge! And doesn't carry back to James Harris. Robson almost turned away in disgust at that one, didn't he?
There's one man who I don't think he's enjoying himself out there. James Harris got 5 wickets in the first innings and bowled beautifully, especially yesterday morning. The batters have taken a bit of a fancy to him. Leading edge there from Robson. We've seen batters who've tried to go across the ball in this game in trouble a little bit. John Simpson, Ryan Higgins both bowled yesterday morning doing the same. Shubman Gill trying to take a ball from off stump into the leg side and found a leading edge, and Sam Robson in a similar position there, but just fell short of James Harris, who would have very much enjoyed that wicket, I'm certain to say.
So 4 to win, Patel it is, done for 16 off his 2. Stoneman on 16.
What are you doing here, Kev? If you're Mark Stoneman, are you going for a big shot into the pavilion to finish your season at home, or
Red Inca all the way? Oh, he's carved it away into the onside through mid-wicket, and those will be the winning runs. Middlesex a 10-wicket victory to take second spot in Division 2, and an outstanding performance here. Not quite at their best with the ball, but more than enough though in the end. 214 and 220 They skiddled Glamorgan for 390 racked up in the first innings. In large part thanks to that man, 128 for Mark Stoneman. Perhaps fitting that it is him that hits the winning runs. Robson with him as well. Positive finish from the pair of them to hit off this 45 required. But all round a game where Middlesex won every session but one, and that one had a lot of talking points in it. It gave Glamorgan a glimpse of coming back in. They'll walk away a little bit disappointed by their week here, Glamorgan, I think, with their performance levels just off in every session apart from one, and in that one it was almost enough to bring them back into the game.
Yeah, Glamorgan were outstanding with the bat yesterday afternoon. They will be disappointed, I think, with that performance, having come into the game with really high hopes, being on the back of such a good run of form, and just hasn't quite worked for them at Lords over the last few days. Winning the toss, being put in on a Monday morning in September, Middlesex winning the toss and putting Glamorgan in on the Monday morning. It was a tricky start to the game for them, and it's remained relatively tricky throughout. Middlesex generally in front all the way through, barring that performance yesterday afternoon where Middlesex were pretty average with the ball, and Byram and Lloyd were fantastic with the bat for Glamorgan during that period. But yeah, a decent performance. I think the stick-out thing there for Middlesex will be just individual contributions. Ryan Higgins 4 wickets in the first innings. Mark Stoneman 120, well supported by John Simpson, Luke Holman with the bat, and then Toby Rowland-Jones 5 for, which was wrapped up this morning. Means that Middlesex have probably got through this with big performances from individual players, you would say.
Man of the match for you?
I think Rowland-Jones, obviously, with his 2 in the first and 7 in the game, but I'm probably going to lean towards Stoneman there, I think. In a batting performance where we did say a moment ago Middlesex were probably 100 more than you would have thought. 270, 280, 290 would have probably been a target score. His 128 really the difference between the two sides. So probably just Mark Stoneman nicks it for me there over Toby Rowland-Jones.
Well, the next highest scorer in the match was Simpson's 76, so that probably puts it into perspective, doesn't it? How good a 128 that was from Stoneman. I think chanceless as well, that century from Stoneman on a pitch that was seeming against a high quality attack. There are the players. There's the skipper, the club captain, Stephen Eskenazi alongside Tim Mercer there. Yeah, not wanting to talk about a sour note really, but that session yesterday is perhaps just the one thing that Middlesex will go into the final 2 games of the season and just say, look, if there's anything that's going to stop Middlesex going up this year, it's just letting the performance level dip off a little bit at crucial times, which nearly let Glamorgan back in here, and in some games this season has let other teams back into it, and that's what they'll just be wary of for 2 away games, which are, wherever the away games are, it's never easy away from home.
Certainly right, never easy to win away from home. Leicestershire, Grace Road, normally very good pitches. Worcestershire at the end, New Road, who knows what the conditions are going to be like there. So 2 tricky away games to come from Middlesex, and I think the point you made on commentary yesterday around the first 4-day game back for Middlesex for actually quite a long time, sort of 7 weeks or so between 4-day games. There was a bit of rustiness there, especially from the bowling group, and that will be something that, heading to Grace Road on Tuesday for the Tuesday start up there, that will be something that Middlesex are definitely looking to address. Just
had a quick look at the points table there as you're looking. So Middlesex confirmation 188 in second spot, with Nottinghamshire top on 215. So you couldn't rule out winning Division 2, of course. Worcestershire against Nottinghamshire will be a feisty match next week, because if Worcestershire do achieve that victory, then they will be looking themselves at still trying to be in with a chance in that final round when Middlesex visit New Road, and that could make an incredible finish to the season, that game. But again, this is a strong Glamorgan side for me that Middlesex overall have really put to the sword here, and that's the standard that Middlesex have been trying to set for themselves, especially to take into next year. If they are to get up, then it's the performance across the majority of the match. They'll know that they just can't let in a session like that things slip away.
Yes, you're exactly right with that point. Middlesex conceded 120 odd runs there in that middle session yesterday, and if Middlesex are able to get into Division 1 for next season, that is something that could kill a game. A really top level Division 1 side, a Hampshire or Surrey, probably don't let you back into a game after that. Unfortunately here for the Glamorgan team and their supporters, Glamorgan did let Middlesex back into it, having batted so brilliantly in the afternoon yesterday, and those are moments really that in Division 1 cricket you probably don't get back as often. So Middlesex mindful of that, mindful of continuing to be consistent, continuing to improve game on game with two as you said, massive games coming up in the next 2 weeks. But what a brilliant finish to the season of Division 2 County Championship cricket we're in for.
We say goodbye to you on the mic then for the season. Might be on to Burnley onto the radio at New Road. Who knows? We'll see. But overall, the home season at Lords here, it started with that draw against Derbyshire. But again, that is always something as well. You look to the home form, don't you? Fortress Lords, Fortress Merchant Taylor. It wasn't quite that way against Worcestershire.
It wasn't, no, and that could be hopefully one game that Middlesex don't look back on and rue that sort of performance there, really. I mean, Pollock was fantastic looking back to Merchant Taylor's there with the bat, and that could be a key moment in the season with still lots of cricket to play out. But I think generally pretty happy with the Lords' performances this year. We've seen some dominating performances from Middlesex. We've seen some hard-earned draws as well. The Notts one, thinking about batting under floodlights on that last day and how well Robson and Holden, I think it was, who sort of wore a few on the thigh pads and continued to battle away against the high-quality Nottinghamshire attack in some pretty tricky conditions. But all in all, I think happy with the championship performances at Lords.
And that Nottinghamshire match, it was huge, and at Trent Bridge as well. They stopped Nottinghamshire from winning twice, which actually is a huge part of the game, and that can't be underestimated. Yes, Nottinghamshire for the most part, I'd look at it and think they dominated the games, but Middlesex stopped them winning. And equally here, I think again, just going back, I had one final look at the scorecard there, 92, 98 for 4, whatever it was in the first innings. That middle order, Simpson, Higgins, Holman again, and a word for Ryan Higgins as well on his return, but that middle order arrested that, and they set up as well as much that 390 as Stoneman's brilliant 128 at the top.
They did, and that middle order we mentioned earlier on have been outstanding this year. John Simpson's been phenomenal with the bat, averaging well over 60 now. Higgins a great addition into there. Luke Holman has really grown into that all-rounder role, and they've been a really consistent and reliable part of this Middlesex batting lineup. We've spoken about the quality of Stoneman and Robson at the top, and we've seen Stoneman excelling in this game throughout, and the batting, as you've said over and over again, the batting has been the real difference this year for Middlesex, especially in these home performances, with some hard-fought cricket and some hard-fought draws, that as well as the good wins that have been a part of the season. Word
for the coach as well, Richard Johnson, first season in charge. How's his performance review going?
Yeah, got his appraisal coming up in a couple of weeks, so no, it's been brilliant really in terms of the calmness that he's brought to the changing room. You mentioned those kind of here we go again moments haven't been as present this year as they have been in the past. You know, there's sometimes been a 20 for 3 and an of murmurings around the ground that Middlesex are going to be 5 down pretty quickly, but it's just been a very, very calm environment, the changing room really, and credit to Pete Hanscom, credit to Tim Murtagh for the leadership they've shown in this format, and Richard Johnson for the environment that's been set up. So pretty pleased so far, but still got a lot of work to do in the next 8 days of Championship cricket.
Head of men's performance, marks out of 10 for him this year?
He's been okay. Some challenges getting overseas players in, as we know, some visa issues, a lot learnt about the Home Office that you didn't think was on the job description to start with. But no, all in all, pretty pleased with some of the progress we've made. Still some to go in other formats, we know that. Disappointing not to qualify in the 50 over, having had such a great start. T20 is a work in progress that we know, but we pride ourselves on our Championship cricket and being competitive in this format, and I think you can safely say that we've been competitive so far this year.
Congratulations on the season so far, and Colin, thanks very much for your help on the mic this year on the stream. It's been an absolute pleasure, and good luck for the final 2 rounds away from home. But thank you kindly for all of your help on the stream. Thank you as well to everybody that's tuned in across the season on the live stream here from Middlesex. An absolute pleasure it's been from all of us bringing it to you. Middlesex are second going into those final 2 games. So away to Leicestershire next. That game starting up next week. Good luck to Glamorgan as well for their final 2 matches. Not too much luck from a Middlesex point of view, of course. It's a real battle for second brewing, and who knows top as well if Worcestershire can have a good week against Nottinghamshire as well. But a 10-wicket victory here from Lords. From everybody on the stream team at Lords, it's a very good day to you all.